Okay, hi guys. So I'm on to part two of my Chi-Raq review. It's very the film. I think there's so much to say that I couldn't do it all in one take. So I'm on to part two. I was where I left off. I was talking about how Nick Cannon's character, because I don't really care what their characters' names are, tells Jennifer Hudson that he killed her daughter on accident, and she's upset about this and she's screaming out to God and everything, and they basically arrest him. And then along with but before that, and before the Angela Bassett part, they do this peace treaty. And like the one thing that stuck out the most is that they said they piled all the guns up almost in a bonfire sort of way. They piled all the guns up, and then they say that everybody who, I can't remember the stipulations, but everyone's guaranteed a job. And that's when I knew. I was like, this clearly. I mean, there are so many things that make this a satire, but that might be the most unrealistic thing of all the unrealistic things in this film. That everybody's guaranteed a job if you don't have one, and not just. I think they said not just like a part-time job or a minimum wage job, but a legit job. And I was like, this is like fantasy land for sure at that point. And I was questioning too. The Angela Bassett's character and I guess Jennifer Hudson's characters, they call themselves, and the other women who were there, mothers of the hood or mothers of the hoods. In other words, I guess the mothers of children that were killed, or their children were killed, and they were like bystanders and stuff. And this was interesting. He killed Patty was her name, and he goes to jail. And then what pissed me off, he has the audacity. Nick Cannon's character has the audacity to do like a prose where he's basically preaching to everyone else, like, oh, you should tell the truth and stop the violence and all this stuff. And I was like, you're the last character to say anything, because you have been this whole time advocating for violence and everything, and you just want you're telling us to do something. And I guess that's supposed to be the audience. And I got where the symbolism was coming on, like his name is Chi-Raq, and when he admits the truth that he killed the girl and is going to jail, he can go by the name Dimitri at that time. I think that's what Teyonah Parris's character says. Like, his name is not Chi-Raq anymore, it's Dimitri. And let me make sure this is on. Okay. I don't know, I keep hearing noises. And I was like, I get it, And it kind of was weird because it was almost like the film was basically saying, in a way, it was saying a lot of things, but I think the most offensive aspect it was saying is that Chicago doesn't want peace. So, and it kind of is on the shoulders of the city itself that it doesn't want peace, and that the people there don't want peace. And him, them changing his name from Chi-Raq to Dimitri after he tells the truth. I thought it was a little unfair to just say, well, this is one problem. Like, if women just stop having sex with these men and we get rid of guns, that would just solve all the problems. Like, the film doesn't go deep enough or realistic enough to be, I think, truly fun to watch or truly truly worth showing. I think what does, I said Spike Lee's best asset in a film is that he does make an interesting story. Like, you still want, even if you hate it, you still felt some emotion from seeing it. And this film was very strange, and its message is kind of weird because it's kind of saying, in a way, of women in this fantasy world, that so many things happen in this film that aren't realistic, or there's so many factors not added to it. If women stopped having sex, then that would change men, and if we got rid of the guns, that would also change the violence, and that maybe one or two people would really be against it. But whatever. It was a little much. I see why people either love the message of this film or hated it. People hate this film because they hate the idea that women's bodies have this much influence over men to make them act bad or good. Like, in other words, it's not really a man's fault or not a man's responsibility if he's a violent gangster, because he's having sex and he's getting whatever he wants in life, whatever. And women, and on the other hand, some people like this movie because it had interesting commentary on relationships between men and women, and on the other hand, some people don't like this film because it kind of supports rape culture, and it kind of is saying that women have this hold on men to act right, and we don't really. Because I'm curious, like, even though this kind of worked in real life, I got to do more research on the woman from Liberia who actually did do the sex strike. I'm curious how large her village was, and okay, how large her village was and how effective it really was for how long, because it's hard for me to believe that this would be something that would last forever. Um, and I think overall, this movie, it was one of the strangest experiences I've ever seen. I'm not sure. I don't hate it or love it, but I don't think I would watch it again willingly. If I was to watch this film again, it would be to watch it with someone who hasn't seen it and to see their thoughts, and see how they felt about the movie. And it, I just, it was very odd. It was a very odd movie. It was so many random stuff happening sometimes. The pros really threw me off. I think the acting overall was good. I think Wesley Snipes took this role a little too silly, in my opinion. I think he was having a little too much fun. He should have been. It was hard to believe him as a gangster, even more than Nick Cannon. And if you know Nick Cannon can portray a gangster better than anybody, you're not trying hard enough. um, see the beginning of the film. I forgot that there. It begins with a lot of rapping, and it's like it had to be like 5 to 10 minutes long. Very long intro, by the way. Like if you're just I wish I should have skipped that. Um, but overall, I think I want to make sure I made all the points I wanted to make about this movie. Because I don't feel strongly one way or the other. Uh, I don't think it's a good movie, though, at the same time. It's a different movie. It's not like anything I've seen before, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily good or I would recommend it for that reason. If I was to recommend this movie from what I've experienced watching it, it would be out of simple curiosity. Like, do you want to see a weird movie? Do you want to see a film that's a satire of something? Yeah, sure, check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. You can watch it. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it right now. It came out pretty early, too. I mean, is it realistic? Not really. It's not supposed to be to a certain degree. It's what's straight. I think what makes it confusing about how realistic it is that it's a film that's a satire and it takes a lot of that seriously. Like it says, we're a satire. We're sort of sometimes we're taking light on, the subject matter. But at the same time, the film is very preachy. It's like a preachy satire, which almost feels like a contradiction. It's like, how can you kind of make fun of something, take something light, and then at the same time be very preachy and kind of being really strong and have a strong opinion on something like, oh, if we just stopped this, then this would happen, and have it said so many times in the films, and like the women chanting like, what was some of the things they said, like basically implying no sex, something. No, yeah, no sex, no power, whatever it was, for the men, and all this stuff. And I almost felt like, can't think of his real name. Spike Lee truly believes that if women did stop sleeping with gangster men or having sex in general, that really would stop violence, which is a tad unrealistic. So it's teetering between. The film is trying to have it both ways, and it can't really pull it off. It can't really pull off saying that it's a satire in the same breath being very, very, very preachy at the same time. Like, it doesn't get away with that. Oh, I wanted to mention Jennifer Hudson's acting because I almost forgot. For someone who's a really good actress in this, I think Jennifer Hudson had some good moments, but like when she finds out her daughter dies, her reaction was more like someone who kind of knew the girl who died instead of the actual mother of the girl who died. Like, she goes over there and she sees the dead body and she's confused and everything, and the police are like, hey, you can't go over there. And she's like, well, that's my child. And maybe maybe Jennifer was going more for a mom who was in denial. But I don't know. I didn't think for someone who is always so dramatic in film, I don't think she was truly into it in that way. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure Jennifer Hudson, let me check. I'm pretty sure Jennifer Hudson's like the only cast member who is from Chicago. Let me check. Because didn't her mother get murdered? Let's see. Born. I don't see. Yeah, she was born in Chicago. Here it is. So I would think she would have a little more emotion. And her mother, I think, was killed too in Chicago. So, and yeah, I think she's the only person who's from the cast who actually is from Chicago. We'll see. Tiana Paris, I don't see where she's from. Nick Cannon is from like LA. And I don't think Angela Bassett's from Chicago. She's from New York. Yeah. But anyway, this was probably top. Very strange movie. I would recommend it if you want to see something different. If you like Spike Lee, I know some people kind of hate Spike Lee now, and I can see why. But I don't think the film is also at the same breath as many problems that this movie has. I don't think is it's as destructive as people might think it is. Like I don't think any intelligent person is gonna walk away from this movie and think that people are actually gonna do this and it work, or that it actually would work if we did this. I don't think so because the movie makes fun of itself almost too much for me to believe that. Like I think it was silly just to think that every woman in the major country in the world, women were doing the sex strike and it was working. I actually if I was to do a film based on this topic, and this would be probably my last note. If I was to do a film on this topic, I think would be more interesting to sort of see the cracks and seams and how it falls apart than it actually working, because I don't find it believable. For starters, you could start off, these women doing the sex strike, and then seeing how there would be some women who would be for it, some women against it. If I was to change, if I was to change the movie, I probably would have made a tad more either serious or satire. I wouldn't be so preachy for sure, but showing sort of the cracks of how this would fall apart, or if it did work, how hard it would be for it to work on the women's end. Because I personally don't think if every woman came together in Chicago, they would do it for starters. There would be actually some women who would be like, no, I'm not doing it, and keep it moving. Women who would say they would do it but fail, and then women who actually would do it, or women who would crack after a couple months. Because I think 3 months might be realistic, but I think that would have been, in my opinion, a more interesting story to see sort of how the struggle I think women realistically would have had to do a sex strike. Because I know sex have for a very long time has sort of been considered this thing that only men like, and it's like women give this to men because men like it, but in reality women and men like it. And especially with millennials, like millennials are very like our generation is very like men like sex, women very equality based. Like we both like this and we both like that, and women like sex, men like sex. Women shouldn't be judged for sex, men shouldn't be judged for how many people they sleep with, and so on. So it's kind of hard to believe that women in this fictional world would just be okay with we'd be totally okay with not having sex at all, and that only men are the ones who really care about having sex. And also added in the factor that rape would probably really happen and be increased, because rape is already an issue that nobody can really do. Women can't really do anything about. Like, I think the whole rape culture talk is really saying that women, if women dress a certain way and women do anything, then that kind of sets off men to rape them, and men they're not being criticized for that. Women sometimes take the blame for rape. That's why some women don't talk about when they get raped and stuff. And I think the film should have discussed that more, like a little bit more on that. In fact, it didn't discuss it at all, actually. In this fictional world, men, even though these gangster men or whatever, they don't actually force themselves on women at all. And so, which is technically good to watch. Like, okay, well, that's good. I don't have to watch a rape scene. The same breath, I'm like, how realistic is that? I don't know. But overall, this was a confusing movie. If I was to rate it, I would probably give it out of 5 out of 10, because 5 points for being different, but I had to take points away from the plot issues that I had. Also, there are points in the film where I was just dying. I was waiting for it to be over. and there were often times in the movie where I was like waiting for it to sort of get to a point or be over. And I've been talking about this for a while. My throat is getting really dry. But I think I made like all the... Yeah, oh, one last thing. Speaking with the women in sex, even in this movie, they say that, in quotation marks, hoes are no-shows. In other words, even the women who make money... This might be going on for a while. And I didn't think about this till now. Even in the film, this is how you know it's a satire, even the women whose job it is to have sex or to strip and stuff like that, they actually stop for the strike. And that's probably the most unrealistic thing among a lot of things. Like, women who actually get paid to have sex or get paid to take off their clothes actually just give it up because Tiana Paris's character says they should, and she's not paying them or anything like that. Like, what are they gonna do for a living? Like, that's a serious question. How are these women making money? Like, really, truly, like, that's hard to believe. The strippers and the prostitutes or whatever stop having sex too for the sex strike. Like, not every woman in the town is gonna care about this sex strike or gonna care about the violence enough to try and stop it in that way. Especially when it was just like one person who got shot that sort of stopped this thing. But in any case, I think I've said everything I had to say. I like I said, I would give it like a 5 or something. But it's an interesting movie. Um, it was strange as heck. It was one of the strangest movies I've watched in quite a while, and I think at this point I'm just repeating myself. So at this point, I just ask, what did you guys think of the movie? If you saw it, did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it's a good satire anyway? If you did see it, would you recommend it to anyone if you've seen it? And I guess just overall thoughts and inquiries about this movie. And do you think Spike Lee? I know a lot of people kind of hate Spike Lee after this, or love him, which I think he's totally used to at this point. I don't think he cares. I don't think he cares really what people think, because his entire career has been sort of this: I'm gonna do what I want to do, and y'all can like it or not like it. It's fine with me. The studio still gives me money to make movies. If I want to make a project about something, I'll make a project about something, and stuff like that. And I'll tell the hard truth if I have to, or whatever. And so I don't think Spike Lee really cares what people think about the film. And I saw in Rotten Tomatoes it got like 80%, which is really good. But I didn't really hear a lot of reviews from like major critics about the film, so I don't know how much that matters. But anyway, that's kind of all I wanted to say. Thanks for watching. Just put your comments down below. And I know I'm a little late seeing this movie, but at least I saw it, right? It's only came out in December, so it's February. But thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.